So we are talking about the cerebrum. We talked about everything else, and the last one here is the cerebrum itself, the main big component, which is the largest part. And I mentioned that this is the highest function of all, the cerebrum. The highest in the cerebrum is the cortex. Remember, the lowest one is the spinal cord. Above it, we have the brainstem and the diencephalon and the cerebellum. And then the top management is the brain, the highest of which is the cortex. So this is doing the highest functions, unlike the other parts that are like doing reflexes and primitive control and secretions and all that stuff. This is the highest function, meaning the high processing, the planning, the memory, and so intellectual functions and so on. So the surface of the cover of the cerebrum is called the cerebral cortex, and we talked about it a little bit before. And the cortex is it gray matter or white matter? The cortex. What do you think? The cover, the cortex of the cerebrum, is it white matter or gray matter? It's gray. It's the opposite of the spinal cord. Remember? Spinal cord is gray inside and white surrounding it. You remember this? Gray inside and white outside. This is the opposite. Outside cortex is gray and the inside is white. And this cortex is not flat. It has elevations, depressions, elevations, depressions. Elevations are called gyri or gyrus. Depressions, it depends. Depression, it depends. If it is a shallow depression, we call it sulcus. If it's a deep depression, we call it fissure. Do you remember when we talked about the spinal cord, the posterior median and the anterior median fissure, posterior median sulcus? Do you remember this? Sulcus and fissure. Both of those sulcus and fissure are depressions. The only difference is fissure is a deep one. The largest fissure that we know is called the longitudinal cerebral fissure. And this is important to remember that this is what's separating the two hemispheres. You have a right and we have a left. What is this big space in between, the fissure? Longitudinal fissure. And this is the location of what? If you guys are studying as we go, what is located in this longitudinal fissure? What digs in this space? It's one of the folds, dural folds. What is it called? Are you guys studying? Kind of. Okay, you will be asked about this for sure. Lecture and lab. So what do you have in this longitudinal fissure? We have the falx cerebri. This dura, it digs in, making a fold, and then come back. So it goes like this. This fold is called the falx cerebri. So if we ask you, where is the location of the falx cerebri? This longitudinal fissure. And we will talk about the rest of them. Now, if you look at the surface of the cerebrum, which is the cortex I mentioned, you will see sulci and gyri. Sulcus is a shallow depression. Fissure, deep depression. The elevation, on the other hand, is called gyrus. So the main sulcus that we have here is at the center, and we call it central sulcus. And this will separate the frontal lobe. Remember, we talked about the lobes. Do you guys remember the skull? Frontal bone, parietal bone, temporal bone, right? Parietal, temporal, occipital. Yeah, the cortex have the same names, or at least 4 of the 5 have the same name. The cortex under this, under the frontal bone, frontal cortex. Under the parietal bone, parietal cortex. Under the temporal bone, temporal cortex. And under the occipital bone, occipital cortex. Easy? This is just under the bone, have the same name, right? But there's a fifth one that's not continuous with those. Like if you look at those, this is continuous, right? Frontal, continue, parietal, go down, temporal, go backward, occipital, right? These are continuous. There is one that is separated like an island, and we call it the island, but island in Greek is called insula. This is just translation. Greek, insula, which mean island. So we have four of those continuous ones, plus the island. What are these four and what is separating them? The four I mentioned it. What's separating them? Central sulcus separate anterior from the parietal, right here. And there are other things that we'll talk about, but since this is separating, and I will show you the pictures, since this is separating central sulcus at the center, and this is separating the parietal behind it, and the frontal anterior to it, so obviously, since this is a depression, there will be elevations in front of it and behind it, right? Every time you see a sulcus, gyrus, sulcus, gyrus, sulcus, gyrus. So since we're talking about this central sulcus, there is a gyrus in front of it and a gyrus behind it. The name is pre and post. Pre-central gyrus, the gyrus that's in front of the central sulcus, and post-central gyrus, that's the gyrus that's behind it. So obviously, the pre-central gyrus, it's part of which lobe? If you're following with me now. Part of the frontal lobe. And the post-central gyrus is part of parietal lobe. Yes. Then we have another sulcus that's called lateral sulcus, and this is separating frontal and parietal on top from the temporal underneath. So it's like here. Lateral sulcus. Between the parietal and occipital, it's just have the same two names. What's separating parietal and occipital? Parieto-occipital sulcus. Okay? So these are the sulci. We still have some more, but these are the main ones. The four cortices that we talked about, frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital, the fifth one, again, is called insula, and insula means island. And this is located deep. It's not on the surface like the four. It's deeper, and it's located actually on the thalamus. You guys remember the thalamus, part of the diencephalon inside? It's on it, on its surface. And to reach it, you have to go deep into the lateral sulcus. And here is the picture to make more sense. So look at this cortex, how it is not flat. It's elevations, depressions, elevations, depression. Obviously, elevations are gyri, depressions are sulci, except for the deep ones are called fissure. I think these are basics now, right? Okay, look at this one exactly in the center, or kind of in the center. Central sulcus. Look at this gyrus in front of it. What is it? Pre-central gyrus. And this one here, post-central gyrus. So what is this lobe in front here? Frontal lobe. And what's the lobe behind it? Parietal lobe. And how about this one in the back? Occipital. What's separating parietal from occipital right here? Parieto-occipital sulcus. Last one here is the lateral sulcus, separating this temporal lobe from the frontal lobe. But if you open it, look at this. We actually do that, and when we do gross anatomy, we actually open the lateral sulcus. And once you open it, we don't do that in the plastic models, of course, but gross anatomy, we actually open the lateral and see the insula inside. Otherwise, which we did already, this is the cerebellum. In front of it, we have the brainstem, midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. So here it is. Again, this is the central sulcus right here. The red anterior to it is the precentral gyrus. Behind it, the purple is the postcentral gyrus. This whole lobe in front of the anterior sulcus, including red and pink, both of them, this is the frontal lobe. So obviously, precentral gyrus is part of the frontal lobe. Behind the central sulcus, parietal lobe, This part, the dark part here is the postcentral gyrus. Occipital lobe, front, temporal lobe, lateral sulcus is right here. Look at this. This is what we actually do in gross anatomy. We get these retractors and open the lateral. You see now this? This is the insula, and it's isolated, as you see. It's not part of those four. It's not continuous. So we have to look inside. And this is actually the surface of the thalamus. Like if you can remove this, you go into the thalamus. On the other side, we are going to see same thing, but part of it, like the frontal lobe was in the front, the pink, and you can see it in the medial aspect as well. Same thing here for the structures that we talked about, parietal lobe, occipital lobe. You can see part of the temporal lobe. And there is a one here, extra one here, that's called cingulate gyrus. We didn't talk about this because it's in the medial aspect. Everything else was here. Remember this? Frontal, parietal, occipital, right? The pink here, this is the frontal, and this is the parietal, and this is the occipital, and this is the temporal. These are the four. So this will extend into the medial aspect, part of it. Here is the same pink, frontal, parietal, occipital. You can see part of the temporal. You can see the central sulcus, precentral gyrus, postcentral gyrus. So everything is the same as the lateral. The only thing that's different here is cingulate gyrus. This one right here. Okay. This part right here is the diencephalon, and this is the brainstem, and this is the cerebellum with the arbor vitae and what we talked about before. Now, what is inside? This was the cortex. The cortex is gray matter, isn't it? How about the white matter inside? The white matter is different things. It all depends on where are you located and what are you connecting. So this is right cerebral hemisphere, and this is the left cerebral hemisphere, okay? There is white inside the right and white inside the left, right? It's all depend on the white inside. What are you connecting? Like these are fibers, a lot of white fibers. What are you connecting? Are you connecting something like within the same hemisphere? Or you're connecting the two hemispheres together? Or are you connecting this whole cerebrum to the underneath structures? We have three levels. The first level is what's connecting these white fibers. Are you connecting within the same hemisphere? We call those association fibers. So association fibers, connections in one same hemisphere. Depending on what exactly, let's go more. So what are the white fibers in one hemisphere? Connecting structure in the same hemisphere, association fibers. Clear? Okay, association fibers, you're connecting in the same hemisphere, but connecting what? Like two things beside each other or far away. So this is subdivided into arcuate fibers. These are the short ones connecting a gyrus to the next. Like precentral gyrus is right here, and postcentral gyrus is right here, beside each other, right? So what's the white connecting them? The association fibers, arcuate. How about this? What if I'm connecting the frontal here with the occipital all the way in the back? Yeah, still association fibers, but not arcuate. It's called longitudinal fasciculus. Longitudinal fasciculus. I will show you the pictures. Next is called commissural fibers. So association fibers, same site, same hemisphere. What's connecting the two hemispheres together? Commissural fibers. Commissural fibers. Commissural means connectors. These are, one of them is called corpus callosum, and the other one is called anterior commissure. You need to know this for sure. What's association fibers, what's the commissural fibers, and so on, and the subdivisions. So association fibers, what is it? Connecting in the same hemisphere. What are the subtypes? Arcuate or longitudinal. Commissural fibers, what are you doing? connecting the two hemispheres. Types, corpus callosum and anterior commissure. Last one is projection fibers. These are connecting the cerebrum above with the structures underneath. Diencephalon, brainstem, spinal cord, it's going down, leaving the whole cerebrum and moving down. So these are linking from the cortex here and going down to the diencephalon, to the brainstem, to the cerebellum, to the spinal cord, to everything under the cerebrum. These fibers, if they put them together, they are not like scattered. They are grouped together, and we call those together internal capsule. Everything here is a question. I think you guys understand what I do now. I don't go word by word. I tell you what's the most important. Of course, internal capsule, question. Projection fiber, association fiber, commissural fibers, these are all questions because it's important. Projection fibers, what do you call them? Both up and down, internal capsule. Look at these. If this is the first one, association fibers. If you're connecting two gyri, look at the blue, just two gyri beside each other. And look at the red. This is connecting like lobes that's not beside each other. So both of those are association fibers. But the blue are arcuate and the reds are longitudinal fasciculus, funiculus. Now look at this. This is the red. This is connecting right and left hemispheres. What do you call it? Commissural fibers. This is corpus callosum on top, the big one. And the small one is the anterior commissure. Last type, look at these blue or black here. You see how it started from the cortex and they funnel down. Looks like a fan shaped and you're collecting together. And you will go down, not stopping here, but it's inside. You go to diencephalon, you go to the brainstem, you go to the cerebellum, you go all the way down to the spinal cord. And these are called projection fibers. And what do you call projection fibers up and down together, ascending and descending? What do you call it again? Internal capsule. Okay, now we talked about the gray outside and the white inside. The white inside, is it all white, like 100% white? No. It does have some collections of gray matter inside the white. And we call that basal nuclei. Basal nuclei. So what are the basal nuclei? Collections of gray matter within the white. Okay? So this is going to control or direct the subconscious activities. What are the subconscious activities? All activities that you are not aware of. Even if you're sleeping, it's still working. This is the management of these subconscious activities. What are these basal nuclei? We have the caudate nucleus, lentiform, and claustrum. Caudate, lentiform, claustrum. Caudate looks like, you know what cauda means? Does anybody know what's cauda? Like cauda equina? What's cauda? Tail. Yes, because it has like a head, a body, and a tail. This is how it looks like. It has a tail. Caudate nucleus. Lentiform nucleus, there are two of those, of the lentiform, putamen and globus pallidus. The last one is claustrum. Here it is. This is the caudate head, and here is the tail. Look at the tail here. That's why we call it caudate, because it does have a tail. Here is the lentiform with the two parts. And this is the rest of it. This is the putamen or putamen right here. This is the caudate. This is the putamen, which is part of the lentiform nucleus right here. Here it is again. These are sections. Of course, you're not going to see like pictures like these or in the lab or something. It's just to show you like how does it look like. So here it is. You can see here these are the caudate nucleus right here at the base of the lateral ventricles, and you can see those two together. These are the lentiform nucleus. This is globus pallidus here, medial, and this is the putamen or the putamen, which is more lateral. Together, lentiform nucleus, and the last one is claustrum out here. This one here. What are these basal nuclei doing again? Controlling subconscious activities, including the skeletal muscle tone and the coordination of movements. And you do need to remember these. Basal function, basal nuclei, subconscious control, or controlling the subconscious activities. Anything that you're doing subconsciously, you don't think about it and do it. It's happening. This is all controlled by the basal nuclei. Most importantly, the skeletal muscle tone and the movement pattern. You should remember this. So if somebody's having Parkinson's disease, this is an issue with the basal nuclei. Guess what they are going to do? Uncontrolled movements. They are going to move like random way of movement. If you're moving, if you're walking, you walk in a regular pattern, a normal pattern. They will have a abnormal pattern. You'll see them like moving random movements like these. It's not controlled. So again, cortex is the one that's going to receive information and send motor command. This is like the highest control in the entire body. And they usually control the opposite side of the body. Like the right cortex is controlling the left side of the body. Left cortex, right side of the body. Now digging more into these structures, we talked about the precentral gyrus, right? And the postcentral gyrus. Are we following? Precentral, postcentral gyrus. This is from the anatomical point. We talked about it. This is what you're going to see in the lab. This is precentral and this is postcentral, just location. But function, what does it do? The precentral gyrus contain primary motor cortex. Primary motor cortex. This is a function, basically. The neurons from there, we call it the pyramidal cells. So you need to know this. For anatomy, what is this? Precentral gyrus. Where is it? In front of the central sulcus. That's it. This is anatomy. Physiology, primary motor area. What does it mean? Primary motor cortex. This is the one that initiates all these voluntary movements. How about the postcentral? Postcentral is the primary sensory area. Somatosensory specifically. What's a somatosensory? Not the general, the rest of the sensations. That's the sensations from like the skin. Okay, do you remember somatic, visceral? Do you remember this? Somatic and visceral. Somatic one is here. So all these different sensations will go into this postcentral gyrus, and we call it primary somatosensory cortex. So anatomy and physiology. How about the special sensory cortices? How about the special sensation? We talked about special sensations, right? The vision, the hearing, the smelling, the taste, right? Where are these? Visual cortex is the one that receives visual information, and it's located here, occipital lobe. Auditory cortex, obviously from the name, auditory, hearing, right? And to remember it, where are your ears? Here. It's located on the temporal lobe, isn't it? Do you remember the lobes? So this is how I remember it. It is located on the temporal lobe. So where the auditory goes to the temporal lobe. And then you have the olfactory to receive the smell and gustatory to receive taste sensation. I will show you the pictures. But it's located in the insula and frontal lobe. Okay, on top of this, each one that I talked about so far, primary motor area, just basics, the basic movements. Primary somatosensory area, the basic somatic sensation. I touch something, it goes to this. Pain, it goes to this. Heat, hot, something cold, whatever it is, all of this go to the primary sensory area. All right? But of course, you guys know that it's not that simple. There is way more, it's way more complicated than that. When you touch something and you know it's hot, don't you remember next time that it is hot? So you create a memory, right? You do not create the memory from these primary. The primary ones are you touch something hot, that's it. You don't remember what was it. You don't associate it with anything else. There are no higher functions so far. It's just the basic thing. Okay, this is like this. You give me a file, I put it here on a desk. That's it. But did you go through it? Did you analyze it? Did you make copies? Did you understand it? This is all more functions than these primary areas. So what is this? Association areas. It's above the primary areas. And these are the ones that are going to interpret what you got. It's not just, you don't say like, I'm seeing something. Yes, what is that something? Association area will tell you because you do create a memory and you coordinate with the other parts through the association fibers. Okay? So this is like when you associate different things together. Like the very first time you see a laptop, this is a laptop, okay? It's not a piece of metal, it's a laptop or plastic, okay? So now you know. Next time if I ask you what is this is a laptop, right? This is how it works. Next time you will remember. And you can actually predict the consequences, right? And you can associate things together. Like the very first time you hear somebody talking to you over the phone, you can say mainly, just you can say this is a man or a woman, right? That's it. But you don't recognize who is it. But when they talk to you a couple of times, you can actually know, like, hi, John. How did you know it's John? Because I kept a memory for it. This is not the primary area. The primary area is just to receive it, somebody's talking. That's it. But you don't know, you don't do more like analysis and coordination and so on. This is the association area. Even for the premotor area, there is an association area. Like what? Like if I'm going to play piano, for example, okay, this is my first time ever. So I will say I'm gonna like do like this and like this and like this. I will be very slow, right? Who is telling the fingers to do these movements? Primary motor area or primary motor cortex, right? But by the time you do it several times, don't you go fast and you don't even look, right? You don't even have to look because you already involved the higher part, which are the association areas. It will help you to coordinate these learned movements. So here is the somatosensory association cortex. It's right beside it. It's right beside the primary cortex. Like you recognize touch. You recognize what are you touching? Like what is this? Touching. Touching what? I don't know. But association area next time will tell you. Visual association area, interpretation of the visual cortex. So visual cortex, just take a picture and that's it. Nothing beyond that. But its association area will do the more complicated work. Same thing for the auditory cortex. And this is the location of each one of those. Look at this. Remember, where is the auditory cortex? The temporal lobe. But where is the association area? Right beside it. Occipital lobe, occipital association area. Primary motor area, association area. Primary somatomotor association area. So basically, association area is located beside it, beside the primary area. And if you look here, this is the insula, And the gustatory and olfactory are located here. Okay, uh, this is the olfactory and this is the gustatory. Both of them are located on the insula. Gustatory part of it is in the frontal lobe too. So do you guys know now the locations? If I ask you, where is the visual cortex? Where? Occipital lobe. And where is the association area? Beside it. We don't have to go into details. Just beside it. Just know that there is an association area beside it. Okay? Where is the auditory cortex? Temporal lobe. In the temporal lobe. And association area beside it. Primary motor, precentral. Primary somatosensory, post-central. Are we following so far? Where is the olfaction and gustatory? Olfactory and gustatory. Insula. Insula. Right here. Look at this. You see the pink and the bluish purple here? The back is the vision. Did you see in the movies, sometimes you get a hit in the back and you lose the vision? It has some scientific basis. They do like you got a hit and then you lost your vision for some time, or sometime it's gone because you hit the visual cortex in the back. Okay, but those two, how many special sensations do you have? 5. 2 of them are in the insula, as you see here, olfaction and gustatory. So here it is, just summarizing what we talked about, putting them together: primary motor, the parietal lobe, what do you have, and so on. Now, next level. So what's the primary level? Primary areas. Clear? This is the primary motor area, primary somatosensory area, primary visual area, right? What above it? Association area on top of it. This is higher control, right? What's on top of those? The next level, which is even higher function, integrative centers. And from the name, they integrate the different things together. They integrate even the cortical areas, and this is above the association area. So it gets the information from the association area. And this is more to do analysis. So you see a car, visual cortex, right? You understand and remember it's a car, association area. Predict what's going to happen if you cross, the car can hit you. So the car is coming like slow, so I can go now safely. But if they are going fast, I can't move now because this will, right? This is more complicated, and this is integrative centers. And connecting different things together, right? I see you, I tell who you are, I hear your voice, I remember it, I tell you what's linking those together. You see a piano, it looks like a piano, you hear it, you know it's a piano. What's linking those together? Integrative areas or integrative centers. Some of these centers are specific for language, for understanding language. Vernix area simply for understanding what you hear. So if this is injured, you hear something and you don't understand, yes. What are you hearing? I don't understand. There is something. I hear something. This helps you to understand it. So if you lose it, you can just say that I'm hearing something. That's it. What is it? I don't know. So what is it? What is this? Understanding language. Understanding language. Broca's area, on the other hand, is what enable you to articulate speech. So what do you think if this is injured? Broca's area. You can't speak well. You can speak still. You can produce sound, but you're going to be like mumbling. We don't understand what you're saying. So the way I remember it is Broca's area. If you break it down, you get broken speech. Broca's area, broken speech. Clear? Yes. Broca's area. If it's affected, you cannot articulate the speech. Depending on how much it's gone. Like if it's affected a little bit, you can you can talk, but not very understandable. But if it is gone, you know what's going to happen? You cannot articulate the sound. You produce something that's completely ununderstandable. Again, to remember it, brokus, broken speech. Brokus area, broken speech. It sounds like it, right? Brokus, broken. If the brokus area is gone, you got broken speech. You talk, but it's broken. Nobody understands it. Okay? Brokus, broken speech. Other areas, prefrontal cortex. This is where the association area for the for the primary motor area is located, plus intellectual functions. Your frontal lobe is like for intelligence, thinking, analyzing, predicting. This is all from the frontal. Here is the prefrontal. This is Broca's area, the yellow. This is a vernix area. Broca's area is responsible for what? Is it articulating speech or understanding speech? Articulating speech. Vernix area is understanding speech. Prefrontal area, high intellectual function, including prediction. Hemispheric lateralization. Even though the right hemisphere and left hemisphere anatomically, they look like each other. Like if I give you two halves, you can't tell, right? You can't tell give me a difference. There is no difference. You can barely tell this is right and this is left. That's it. But from the physiological point of view, this is not the case. They do different functions. One of them is called the dominant hemisphere, and the other one is the non-dominant hemisphere. Most of us are right-handed, right? Few of us are left-handed. If you are right-handed, your left hemisphere is dominant, right? Remember I told you in the beginning, it's crossing, right lobe responsible for left side, left lobe responsible for right. So if you're right-handed, which hemisphere is dominant? Left. If you're left-handed, your right hemisphere is dominant, and I will tell you what I need by dominant. Here is the dominance. Reading, writing, math, speech, language, decision-making. Like the concrete thinking, the most important part is done by the dominant. Is it always the left? No, most likely it is the left. Okay, so this is more of the dominant one. These are things that you cannot survive without it. And that's why it's in the dominant hemisphere. If you can't read or write or you talk or you make decisions, your life is ruined, right? This is the dominant one. The other one, the non-dominant, is more of analysis of sensation, smell, taste, recognition of the face, associated emotions. Okay, so it's non-concrete thinking. Dominant, concrete thinking, reading, writing, speech, language, decision. And the other one, the non-dominant, is more for analysis of the sensory information. You analyze things. Can you survive without it? Yes, that's why it's not the non-dominant. Recognition of faces and voices and so on. The way we can understand if there's something wrong happening in the brain is the EEG. And there are some technologists, this is their job, just EEG technologists, right? This is what they do for a living. They get the recording of the brain activities and they can read if there is something wrong or not. And when we monitor the brain activities, they put like electrodes in different parts, like on the scalp, in the face, in different parts. The electrodes, electrical wires, and this go to the computer, and the computer contain a program to put it in the form of waves. We have four normal waves: alpha, beta, theta, and delta. These are the basic types. What are these, or what does each one of those mean? Let me start with the three normal ones for adults. If you are concentrating and like what I'm expecting you to do now. You are following with me, you're understanding, you're engaging, okay, you're concentrating. I should expect that you have beta waves. What should you should have right now is beta waves. You open your eyes, you're concentrating, you're understanding, engaging, right? If I do a recording right now, I should see beta waves. Sometimes I see somebody, especially in the back, is doing like this, right? Yeah. If you do this, you're going to alpha. You're closing your eye. You're not sleeping yet, but you're just closing your eyes and not concentrating. Yeah, yeah, I got you. What I was talking about, I don't remember. Yeah, this is alpha waves, and this is less than beta. If you're actually falling asleep, like if I hear somebody snoring in the back, now you're getting into delta. Okay, this is the deep sleep. Delta, deep, DD, to remember. Delta, deep. This is a deep sleep. So beta is what I'm expecting. Somebody's dozing and closing eyes and less activities. That's alpha. Deep sleep, delta waves. So there is one missing. Look, this is the alpha wave. Look at the beta wave. Look at the beta waves. See high frequency. Compare this to this. Isn't it a little bit relaxed? This is exactly what it is. If it is like high frequency like this, means you're thinking, you're concentrating. If it starts to relax like this one here, you're not sleeping yet, but you're closing your eyes and you're relaxing and you're about to sleep. Um, Delta is for deep sleep. It's very low frequency. Look at this. See? It's like very slow. Big waves that are slow. And this is deep sleep. Okay. How about theta waves? Theta waves is normal in children, and that's why I didn't talk about it in the beginning. Theta waves are normal in children. What if an adult have a theta waves? I mean you are a child? No, you have an issue. You have something in the brain. Without going into the details, there is a disorder. So we should see it only in children. Right and left sides are synchronized. It's not like the right is working and the left is working independently. This is like when you synchronize your phone with your laptop, for example. Whatever you have here, you have an idea about it in your laptop, right? You store the information. So there is a synchronization between right and left hemispheres. You have a pacemaker that start the process, but the two sides are linked. The two sides are synchronized. If there is something that cut this, we call it decentralization, and this is an issue, but I'm not going to go deeper than that. Seizure. We hear about seizure, right? Seizure is usually the way we think about it is convulsions, like you go like this is seizure. No, it's not necessarily convulsions. Seizure is coming from seize. You just cease to function. You stop functioning for some time. A lot of times it's accompanied by convulsions, but not necessarily because it just cease to function. Cease to function with convulsions or not, this is another thing. Like in infants and children, they have type of seizure. They don't have any convulsions. You go like this. You see a kid going like this. You talk to him, he's not responding. He's actually having seizure. What are the convulsions? No convulsions. Not necessarily. Okay? Just cease to function. Cranial nerves. Cranial nerves, we have 12 cranial nerves. And to make it easy for you, I put a table. The students from a couple of years, they summarize it together. So I'm going to use that table to avoid going through all of these slides. It will save you time. But basically what I want you to know in each one of those is numbers, English and Roman numbers. Do you guys know the Roman numbers? 1, 2, 3. So English and Roman numbers. What is the name of the nerve? Is it sensory or motor or mixed? Do you remember spinal nerves are all mixed? Do you remember this? This is not the case here. For those 12 cranial nerves, some of them are pure sensory, some of them are pure motor, and some of them are mixed. You need to know which one of those. Then the next is where you start, where you end, and what happens if you're injured. The last one goes without saying. You don't even have to think about it. If you know the function, you know what happens if you lose it, right? If you know, for example, that nerve number 1 is olfactory for smelling. If it's injured, what do you think? You lose smelling. Nerve number 2, optic for vision. What happens if you lose it? You don't see, right? As simple as this. So the dysfunction is the easy part. The function is what you have to know. So we have 12 cranial nerves. We will get to know those in the lab, starting from olfactory, which is 1, optic, this is 2, it's different parts, 3, 4, 5, all the way. Here are the nerves. Olfactory is 1, optic is 2, oculomotor is 3, and do you see the Roman numbers? Trochlear is 4, trigeminal is 5, abducent is 6, facial is 7, vestibulocochlear is 8, glossopharyngeal 9, vagus 10, hypoglossal is accessory mean first is 11, and then hypoglossal is 12. These are the names, including the Roman numbers, and you need to know that. I believe there is, but let me just stop here. So we're doing the cranial nerves from this. Nerve number 1 is called olfactory nerve, and you see the Roman number beside it. Where does it start? Olfactory epithelium in the nose. Where does it go to? Olfactory cortex. Remember the insula? It go to the insula. What is the function? Is it sensory or motor? It is spatial sensation, which is smell. Sensory, obviously. This function, that's the easy part. Responsible for smelling, you lose it, you don't smell anymore. That's it. Optic nerve, this is nerve number 2, and it starts from the retina, but this one specifically, you need to know a little bit more details than the other ones. This one, because you need to know the whole pathway. Start on the retina, and then optic nerve. The optic nerve, part of it is going to cross. Cross in Greek is called chiasm. Translation, optic chiasm. So if you see this, optic nerve, followed by the crossing, which is optic chiasm, and then optic tract, which is the next, and then optic radiation, lateral geniculate body. This is something in the thalamus. Then the diencephalon, including the thalamus, and it ends at the visual cortex located in the occipital lobe. I will show you guys pictures to go through this more, because you need to know every single detail about the different parts of the optic nerve specifically. But what's the function? What do you think? Optic nerve, vision, obviously. So is it sensory or motor? Vision. Vision is sensation, right? So it's sensory, special sensation. What happens if you have an issue? You lose your vision. Nerve number 3 is oculomotor nerve. If you understand the name, you understand the function. Oculomotor. What's oculus? Eye. What's motor? Moving. This is the eye mover. Okay. Does it like feed all the muscles? All the muscles minus 2. All the muscles minus 2 that I will talk about. So superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, levator palpebral, it's everything minus 2, and I will give it, if I give you the 2, everything else is oculomotor. This is the main eye mover, hence the name oculomotor. Is that sensory or motor? It's called oculomotor. What do you think? Right? It's motor, of course. What if you lose it? You cannot move the eye and other things, including the coordination, but basically, or most importantly, the movement of the eye. Nerve number 4 is called trochlear nerve. Remember I told you oculomotor give all the muscles of the eye minus 2. This is one of them. 4. 4 is called trochlear. Why did you call it trochlear? Because there is one of the muscles in the eye. Let me tell you this. I know this is not 234. You will learn it in 234. Just a brief idea. There are 6 muscles controlling the eye. 4 of them are straight muscles, like this. One straight above, one straight under, one straight outside, and one straight inside. This is 4. Straight means rectus. Superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, lateral rectus. Okay, 4 recta. And 2 oblique. One above, obliquely like this, and one under. Did you get the muscles? These are the muscles of the eye. Superior rectus, superior oblique, superior oblique, it goes like this, look, goes like this. And there is a sling called trochlea. It goes in it and then reflect backward to go to the eye. Unlike everything else goes to the eye, directly. This is the only one that go through a trochlea sling like this. The tendon go into this and reflect back to go to the eye. Hence the name of the nerve, trochlear nerve, because it goes into this muscle that use the trochlea. So what is the muscle here? Superior oblique muscle. Superior oblique. This is one of the 2 exceptions. So what does it do? Of course, it moves the eye. If you have an issue, you can't move the eye. Okay. I will skip trigeminal. I'll come back to it. But abducent is the second exception. What do you call this movement of the eye? You're going medial or lateral? Lateral. Is that adduction or abduction? Abduction. Abducent nerve. Because abducent nerve give the muscle that make you abduct. Which one do you think will make you abduct? Superior, inferior, medial, lateral. Which one? Lateral. So yes. You get the abducent nerve? Nerve number 6. I forgot it. Okay, abducent, abduction. Which muscle do the abduction? Lateral rectus. Got it? It should make sense. Okay? Understand. It's always understanding. So that tells you, so that's it for the muscles. So that tells you that if you put it together, it will make more sense. 3 is everything except for 2. What are the 2? Superior oblique, going through the trochlea, trochlear nerve. Lateral rectus, that abduct the eye, abducent. So if I ask you, what are the 3 nerves that move the eye? What would you say? Moving the eye. Which 3 out of those that I just mentioned? Oculomotor, this is 1. Abducent, this is 2. And the last one is trochlear. So it's 3, 4, and 6, isn't it? Yes, you have to link the information together like this. Not every one of those just individually. If I ask you like something like this, it's a deeper way of asking. Instead of asking you, what's the abducent nerve? What's the trochlear nerve? Now I can ask you, what are the nerves together that move the eye? 3, 4, and 6. If you put them together, isn't this is feeding all the muscles? Yes. So 3, 4, and 6, these are the eye movers. The one that I skipped is called trigeminal nerve. Of course, 3, 4, and 6, these are what? Eye movers. So is it sensory or motor? Motor, of course, right? It's common sense. Most of them will make, some of them, the mixed, it's just need a little bit more understanding. But otherwise, like olfactory, what do you think? Olfactory, of course, sensory, right? Optic, vision, of course, it's sensory, right? 3, 4, and 6, they move the eye. So what do you think? It's motor, of course, right? So these are the easy ones. The mixed ones are the hard ones. So first one is trigeminal nerve. What is it called again? What's tri? 3. This is what I always do when I hear trigeminal. I put my fingers like this. Okay, my three fingers, because this is how the nerve looks like. It looks like a hand with three fingers only. You will see it in the lab. It looks like this. Okay, so when I do this, automatically I'm pointing to the eye, ophthalmic. I'm pointing to the maxilla, maxillary. I'm pointing to the mandible, mandibular. These are the three branches. That's why they call it trigeminal. Ophthalmic, maxillary, mandibular branches. Okay? And this, what does it do? It go to these three areas. Okay? Both sensory and motor. And for the sensory part, did you hear about trigeminal neuralgia? Did you hear about this? Pain in the eye. It's responsible for both sensation in these areas that I talked about. Okay, so we got from 1 to 6 so far. Are we following so far? You good? Okay. Now from 7 to 12. 7 is called facial nerve. Why did you call it facial nerve? Because facial expressions is the main function, not the only function, the main function. Facial nerve, facial expressions. And what do you think? Facial expressions. Is that sensory or motor? Motor, right? But there is a sensory part of it that um, that comes from the palate, the pharynx, palate, and where is it? 7 right here. So that I'm sorry. Um, Facial is mixed, so the facial expression, this is the motor part, and taste sensation. I'm sorry, I confused it. Taste sensation from the tongue. This is the sensory part. So is it motor or sensory or mixed? Mixed, right? Motor, facial expression. Sensory, taste. Together, it's mixed. This is a facial nerve. What would happen if there is an injury? It's common sense. If you know the function, you know the dysfunction. You just lose it. Okay? Can you move your muscles of facial expressions? No. Do you lose part of your taste? Yes. That's it. 8. Vestibulocochlear nerve. Translation. Vestibulo means vestibule, part of the inner ear. Cochlear, the cochlea is also part of the inner ear. So this is the nerve of the inner ear. What is your inner ear doing? Hearing. Most importantly, hearing. What else do you think is a function of your inner ear beside hearing? Huh? Balance, yes. Equilibrium, right? Do we all know that? Right? Your inner ear is not only for hearing. It's hearing and balance. So vestibulo is a part of the inner ear for balance or equilibrium. Vestibulo. Cochlear, the cochlea is a snail-shaped part that's responsible for hearing. And this is what we need to know. Vestibulocochlear. Vestibule is equilibrium or balance. Cochlea is for hearing. Vestibulocochlear nerve. And this is nerve number 8. Where does it start? Where does it end? I think this is common sense. Vestibulocochlear. It's the receptors in the inner ear. And where does it go? It go to the cortex, auditory cortex. What is it responsible for? Hearing and balance, right? If an issue happen, you lose hearing and balance. That's it. Nerve number 9 is called glossopharyngeal. And this is also mixed. Vestibulocochlear. What do you think? Is it sensory or motor or mixed? Hearing and balance. Sensory, that's it. There is nothing else. But the nerve number 9 is glossopharyngeal. What glosso means? Tongue. Pharyngeal means Pharynx. Pharynx. So this nerve is responsible for what? Tongue and pharynx. Glossopharyngeal. What do you mean glossopharyngeal? Glosso, tongue, this is the sensory part. Pharyngeal, the pharynx, this is the motor part. And this is what it does. Okay? And where does it come from? I think you guys should know that automatically. Do you guys remember when I did this thing here, when I draw something here and I told you 1 and 2, not even from the brainstem, and then 3 and 4 from the midbrain, 5, 6, 7, 8 from the pons, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 from the medulla? Do you guys remember that or not? If you remember that, you got the origin of everything already. Okay, so we did it already. Okay, it's here, just in case if you forgot it, you can take a photo or a picture or something if you want to. 1 and 2 are not even from the brainstem. Okay, this is the midbrain, pons, medulla, and the spinal cord. This is 3 and 4. This is 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Clear? Just take a picture of this and you're done. This is the origin of everything. And this help you twice. Help you in the function and or in the cranial nerves, and it help you with the brainstem itself. Because this is a function, right? Part of the function. All right. So glossopharyngeal, glosso, tongue, sensation from the tongue. Motor, motor for the pharynx. This is the most important thing. Where does it come from? It's right there. Vagus nerve. Vagus nerve translation. Always translate first. Always translate. Vagus means wandering. Translation in English, the wandering nerve. Why did you call it the wandering nerve? Because look at this whole territory, all of this here, everything. It's feeding all of this area. So this nerve is wandering in this huge territory. This is where the name came from. Did you understand this? Wandering nerve. The nerve that's wandering in this huge territory. Everything inside get innervation from the vagus nerve, and it is mixed, and basically it's responsible for sensation and motor of everything inside, and it is mainly parasympathetic. Do you guys remember sympathetic and parasympathetic? Which one is fight, flight? Sympathetic. Which one is rest, digest? So who is responsible? Which nerve carries the parasympathetic from all these organs? Vagus nerve. Okay, vagus nerve. Parasympathetic. So it's both sensory and motor to everything in the viscera, specifically parasympathetic. Accessory nerve. Why did you call it accessory first? Always understand. Accessory means additional, right? Accessory, extra, additional. So what are we talking about right now? We're talking about cranial nerves, meaning the nerves that come from brain or spinal cord. Brain. This one only, this one exception, it get an accessory root from the spinal cord. So we call it accessory nerve. Did you get the meaning? Where did you get this from? Because you have an accessory origin from the spinal cord. So do you mean it's not pure cranial nerve? No, it is not pure. Just this one. It gets some roots from the spinal cord. And that's why we call it spinal accessory or accessory nerve. Where is the root of, which part of the central nervous system? It's right here. Just if you memorize this, look how it looks like. It will give you everything. All cranial nerves, all brainstem. So what do you do? Moving pharynx, larynx, palate, and this muscle here, shoulder. It moved the shoulder. Pharynx, larynx, palate, plus shoulder. What happened if this function? You lose these functions. As simple as this. Last one is hypoglossal. What's hypo? Hypo, above or under? Yes, below or under the tongue, right? Hypoglossal, under the tongue. What's under the tongue? There are muscles under the tongue. So what do you think the function is? Moving the tongue. Moving the tongue. That's it. It's the tongue mover. Under the tongue to move it. Just remember this sentence. Hypoglossal is under the tongue to move it. Okay, look at this picture here. Here is the location of each one of those, but we will see it in different models in the lab. Here is olfactory. And by the way, olfactory, do you see this long thing here, green? There are two parts if you notice. There is this dilated part here, and this is called olfactory bulb. And look at the tiny part here, or the cylinder part. This is tract. So what are the two parts of olfactory nerve? Bulb and tract, just like this. Bulb and tract. There are two parts. Together, nerve, olfactory nerve. What is this alone? Olfactory bulb. What is this alone? Olfactory tract. Both together, olfactory nerve. Nerve number one. Nerve number two is the optic nerve. Look at the optic nerve. And you see how they come together right here in the middle? What do you call this middle part when they come together? Crossing. Crossing means start with C, not coda. Chiasm. Yes, thank you. Chiasm. Optic nerve, optic chiasm, optic tract. Three, the yellow here. You will need to recognize all of these in the lab. Okay? So here is the yellow one here. This is oculomotor. And next one is 4, trochlear nerve. Look at this. What do you think this one is? The big blue one that looks like this. It's like a hand with 3 fingers. Trigeminal. Trigeminal. This is 5. 6, 7, and 8 right beside each other. 6, which is abducent, 7, which is facial, 8, which is the glossopharyngeal nerve. 6, 7, and 8. 6 is abducent, 7 is facial, 8, I'm sorry, 8 is vestibulocochlear, I'm sorry. So here is 6, 7, and 8, purple, red, and pink. 6, 7, 8, abducent, facial, vestibulocochlear. 6, 7, and 8. How about the last 4? The last 4 are coming here from the medulla oblongata. Look, 9, 10, 11, and 12 by itself. Can we see this sequence? We will learn it more in the lab. But look at this yellow, kind of brown, orange, and then blue. 9, 10, 11, in a line like this. And you see how 12 is by itself? Okay, so these are the locations of the cranial nerves. Where does it go at the end? Here it is. This is for optic nerve. It goes to the occipital lobe. For taste, which is more than one nerve, it goes in here. Olfaction, nerve number 1, it goes in here. And both of them are in the insula, right here. And this is the auditory area. So which nerve is this? What is the name of the nerve that goes to this area? Vestibulocochlear nerve. Okay, so this is what we need to know about this part. So if you look here, you will see the eye. Look at this optic nerve coming from the eye. This is here is one, and here is the other optic nerve. Look at this. They make one contain green fibers and one contain red fibers for a reason that you will see. Look at this part that's crossing. Do you notice that not both of them cross? Like there are 2 green here and 2 red here. Do you see that 1 red and 1 green are only crossing in the chiasm? Which one? The inner side. So just the inner side is the one that cross. The outer side does not cross. So it's called chiasm for crossing from right and left. Is it the whole nerve cross? Like right become left and left become right? No. The inner fibers only are the ones that cross. The outer fibers just continue as it is. Continue to what? To the next part known as optic tract. And this will be followed by lateral geniculate body, which is this, diencephalon. And look at this, optic radiation, until it ends going to the visual cortex, which is in the occipital lobe. Okay? So what do you think will happen if the optic nerve is cut? If you cut the optic nerve, you lose the vision completely in one eye. Clear? But what if you cut the optic tract? No, this is different. If you cut the optic tract, only what go to this optic tract? It's the outside of the right and the inside of the left. So you don't see this way only. Did you understand the difference? Not the whole nerve cross, only the inside. So if one of the optic tracts are lost, do I lose the vision in one complete eye? No, no. You see the green here? So this will make you look left. And look at the red here. That will make you look left. So I can see this side, I can see here, I cannot see left. Did you get it? And vice versa for the other side. Does it make sense? It's common sense if you think about it. And